Hi, everyone. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods. It has been quite an active weather day. We have been tracking severe thunderstorm warnings as well as a tornado warning. Now, all of that active weather is starting to quiet down for tonight. But again, we are looking at just one of those really active weather patterns I know that we've done with flooding earlier today, as well as just periods of what the National Weather Service has been calling torrential rain. At one point, we were tracking this line of storms that was coming out of the Central Valley, moving towards Folsom, dumping about 1.25 inches of rain in a short period of time. That has led to some flooding on some minor flooding on some roadways, as well as storm drains being backed up. Not to mention that we've got really saturated ground. So it wouldn't surprise me if we had some tree issues coming into the next 24 hours or so. The good news is that we'll start to lose some of those winds. But I know it's just been one of those situations where it looks like we get a break in that weather, and then all of a sudden here comes another round of rain that hits the valley, even through the foothills. One thing that's been really interesting as well is just that snow line has been a little bit higher. This hasn't been the biggest snow producer for us. We're going to be diving into all of these different elements, but I did just want to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about as we head into this live broadcast here, and really kind of unpacking each layer and element of this weather that's been moving in. I will say this has been hitting the entire state. We've been talking about some landslides in parts of central and southern California, as well as some roads that have been blocked just because of trees that have been coming down, especially on the north end of the state where that low has been kind of parked over the past 24 hours. It's kind of been fluctuating a little bit, but it's still just off the coast. It hasn't even made its way inland. And that means we're going to be dealing with this wet weather all the way into our Wednesday forecast with only a short break, and then we're right back at it. So I'm going to be not only talking about the next 24 to 48 hours, but I'm going to take you beyond that to show you how long this wet weather pattern actually lasts deep into our outlook. I want to show you some of the flooding issues. If we can, we'll take this image full screen here where you can see Monday morning we had a water rescue. This was out at Kiefer Boulevard. So one of the streams had overflowed its banks, and you can see what's really interesting on the picture on the left, how there's just a little bit of pavement. A car thought they could make it through, and then this is what happened. Sacramento Metropolitan Fire had to go out and rescue the folks that were in that vehicle. 2 people had to be rescued from that. They took them out by boat and got them to safety. But unfortunately, some dangerous conditions out there this morning, and more of that to come. We're still looking at areas of heavy rain coming down in the valley. So in just a very short period of time, last night into midnight, Rockland got over 1.5 inches of rain. That's on the east side of the Sacramento Valley. Not far from there, Roseville, 1.39 inches of rain. Citrus Heights, 1.34. Sacramento Executive, over 1 inch of rain, again, just in 4 hours. And then Yuba City with about 3/4 of an inch of rain. Then we headed into today. We added additional rain to that. And by the way, it's still raining right now. So we picked up about another 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch of rain throughout the valley. Higher totals just off to the east. Again, some of our locations aren't necessarily depicted on this graphic, but I will say Folsom, which is just down the hill from Placerville here along Highway 50, picked up over 1 inch of rain for today. Even for the Tahoe Basin, some of that precipitation fell as rain, not necessarily snow. So it's been a real mixed bag, very slushy up in the high country. Highway 50, for the most part, hasn't even had chain controls for today. It's mainly been along 80. And brace yourself. We're right back at it for tomorrow afternoon. Timing will be very similar to today. Our severe weather on Tuesday will be late morning through the early evening. Same type of weather, not quite the risk level, but the same type of weather is possible, including thunderstorms, hail, wind, and tornadoes, as well as funnel clouds. So the impacts will be the potential for flooding, power outages, as well as tree damage and possible trees falling as well. Today, we had a severe thunderstorm warning issued for parts of the foothills, including Forest Hill. I want to show you some video that we got in of the hail in Forest Hill. This is from Tammy Darling. She submitted this where you can see it's a little dark, but you can see the hail certainly coming down on the back porch. And that's just some of the weather that we were dealing with for today. Again, we had that tornado warning issued just to the north of that for parts of Butte and Plumas County. Here's a look at how the radar is shaping up right now. And we still see the moisture working its way in from the Pacific. The difference is we're not seeing kind of that categorical severe risk coming into play as we head into the overnight hours. Still a little cluster of those thunderstorms happening right in that 80-50 corridor. This has been particularly hard hit. That's where we had that severe thunderstorm warning, by the way, earlier today. Still seeing a lot of lightning. It's just not seeing the severe nature and much of this line developing at this hour. And we'll see that start to quiet down for tonight, but not completely. We're not completely done with the rain and snow as well as the severe weather, as we mentioned. And that's going to put additional pressure on this flood watch, which will continue through Wednesday morning. Tomorrow we'll still get additional rain accumulation, as well as more pressure on the creeks, the streams, even some of the rivers starting to get a little bit more on the watchful side. We've got some passive weirs that will be opening. For those of you that aren't familiar with the weir system here in California, those are just areas along the river that are made to passively allow for those flood flows to go into some of the farmland that's nearby. And then there's areas that are meant to retain some of that water. So we'll be watching that, and I'll show you the areas that'll be having those passive weir flows going on. Our flood watch will continue with prolonged periods of heavy rain at times. We've got the runoff, not to mention, in addition to the rainfall, we got the runoff. So added water into rivers and streams. And you saw those pictures earlier in the video. Remember, turn around, don't drown. You just never know how deep that water is. And it doesn't take much to actually lift a car and push it around and get somebody trapped. Okay, here's a look at our river forecast monitoring. We've got two spots here on the Sacramento River that are expected to get to flood stage. That'll be Tehama Bridge and Ord Ferry. Both of those along the Sacramento River, that's north of the downtown area, will have those passive weirs flowing. So again, it just kind of flows into farmland. It's made to flood over there. Once we start talking about any areas that get a little bit closer to the city, that becomes a more dangerous situation. More people are affected. And that would require potentially, like the Sacramento Weir, actually manually being open. But we have releases going on Shasta, our biggest reservoir in the state. So that's putting additional water into the waterways. And so we'll be monitoring all of this as we head deeper into the storm cycle, which, by the way, will continue, like I said, until Wednesday morning. Here's a look at the Sierra. Finally starting to see some snow up there. This is at Donner Summit, where we've had chain controls and actually starting to see the white on the roadways. For much of today, it was just kind of a slushy mix of rain and snow, and those roads stayed fairly clear. Now we're heading into a time frame where we're starting to get the colder air working in, the snow level starts to drop, and more dangerous conditions develop in the Sierra. This was the tail end of the long holiday weekend, and folks were just hoping to get up there, but trying to navigate some of these dangerous conditions. Our 24-hour snow totals just coming in from some of the ski resorts through 6 o'clock this morning. Kirkwood, 18 inches. Sierra Tahoe, 15. Mammoth Mountain, 12 inches of snow. North Star, 11. And Sugar Bowl at 10 inches. I'm going to go back to Mammoth Mountain in just a second, and I'll tell you why, because of avalanche danger. But first, let's talk about those major driving hazards. Slick, snow-covered roads will continue, poor visibility, travel delays, and chain controls. And we could have road closures in the Sierra. That is yet to come. We've been able to navigate up into the high country pretty well so far, but we're going to continue to watch extreme impacts in that Sierra spine all the way through the southern Sierra through at least Wednesday, with that winter storm warning in effect until 10 a.m. So we'll continue to watch that. Now, behind all of this going on is this avalanche warning. That will continue overnight tonight through early tomorrow, especially for the backcountry. So Mammoth Mountain had put out on their social media account that they actually were going to be taking away passes, suspending passes for 10 days for anybody that disregarded the avalanche warnings at Mammoth Mountain. So that's your first warning. Your second warning, not only were you going to get your pass stripped for the entire season, but you could face criminal charges because of how dangerous it is in the backcountry right now. We've seen periods of heavy snow and then also a different type of snow. So we're seeing a lot of vulnerabilities in the backcountry right now, and that is somewhat where some of that great powder is, but it's just way too dangerous to go out there. So I thought that was pretty interesting that Mammoth Mountain was putting that out. Plus, the wind gusts are going to really add to the vulnerability of the avalanche danger in the high country. We've seen peak wind gusts upwards of 45 miles per hour in parts of the Sierra. Could see about 100 mile per hour peak wind gusts at the peaks. Over towards the coast, 50 plus peak mile per hour wind gusts for today. And we saw about 30 to 40 mile per hour peak wind gusts for the valley. Our wind advisory will continue until 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. And then we'll start to see some slightly quieter conditions. The only caveat is that we still have that risk of thunderstorms, and that could mean some periods of gusty winds. That would be very isolated in nature, not very widespread like what we've been seeing on and off since Sunday. So we had pretty much 48 hours to deal with these winds. It wasn't quite as problematic as what we saw about a week and a half ago, where we saw a lot of trees come down and widespread power outages, but it was just kind of the prolonged effects of those wind gusts that we've been dealing with. Here's the low, the culprit of everything. It's continuing to spin its way off the coast here. It's starting to make a little bit of progress inland, but still dealing with lots of rain and pulling in that moisture from the Pacific. We've really had some very warm conditions out ahead of this weather system, and that's added to the higher snow level. Tonight we'll see isolated activity with moderate to lighter rainfall coming in. That will continue all the way through Tuesday. Line of rain just up to the north of the valley, right along I-5 and 505. If your travel plans take you in that direction, heading back into that morning commute. Yeah, reality check after the 3-day weekend. Some spotty snow showers for this year, much better travel conditions for tomorrow morning. But then we get into the afternoon. Now, here's the real interesting thing about tomorrow afternoon, as we start to see a little bit of a break in not only the rain, but the cloud cover, adding to what is already a very unstable environment. And so now we're starting to look at that increased risk again of severe weather. The Storm Prediction Center earlier just had us with a very slim risk, thunderstorms, but now we're back to that marginal with basically thunderstorms throughout the valley, but also about a 2% probability of a tornado within 25 miles of the areas shaded in green. So we're talking about basically the northern San Joaquin Valley all the way through the Sacramento Valley. And then we also have that risk of hail as well. Probability of 1 inch or higher hail is about 5% within 25 miles of the area shaded in kind of that brown color. Again, that's for tomorrow. That's on the heels of what we had for today. Had a tornado warning. It was a radar indicated tornado just because of the rotation indicated on radar. Kind of the difference. We normally see funnel clouds out here, but it's certainly not totally uncalled for to get a tornado. Usually they're on the smaller side, EF0, EF1, not necessarily what we would see in the Central Plains or certainly the Deep South. But tornado is a violently rotating column of air. It must be in contact with the ground, and usually debris is visible, whereas a funnel cloud doesn't cause damage and it has no contact with the ground. It's just a rotating funnel-shaped cloud from the base of a cloud. So those are the two differences, and that's what we'll be tracking for tomorrow. In terms of how many we've seen since 1970, this is why I'm saying it's not completely unheard of. We had our first tornado confirmed in Tuolumne County last year, but the rest of the valley, anywhere from about 10 to 25 plus tornadoes confirmed since 1970. In terms of total rainfall that we'll be getting for the back edge of this weather system, we're done with the heaviest part of the rain. Still picking up roughly about 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch for the valley, and closer to about 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch for the foothills. And then additional snowfall coming in. Oh, we'll pick up about 1 inch to 10 inches of snow as far as tomorrow into even Wednesday afternoon is concerned. The back edge kind of lingering in here, just doesn't want to let go for the middle of the work week forecast. Tomorrow morning, again, a bit of a break in the action. Not the worst conditions, but during the afternoon, that's when we get a few breaks in the cloud cover, firing off some more instability, and those thunderstorms will be increasing throughout the valley, it looks like, during the afternoon. Wednesday afternoon, we're still looking at reflectivity on our forecast models, but it's much lesser in the way of accumulated rainfall. But the interesting thing is we actually start to see that snow line dropping on Wednesday. It's going to be a little bit higher tomorrow, and then it'll start to drop. We're not quite done yet. We get a little break Thursday into Friday, but here comes that low off the coast again. And that will hit us as we head into our weekend forecast. It's going to be the tail end of the weekend. Not a complete washout. A lot to be determined, but it does look like we're going to be off to a dry start for the weekend. A lot brewing in the Pacific. It's going to be a little bit of a shift, though. Instead of these warmer, super wet storms that we've been dealing with through much of February, March looks like we're going to be returning to kind of how we started off the season. Likely wetter through the Pacific Northwest and drier in Southern California, but also likely cooler. So we could be calling for some of those lower snow lines and also a cooler weather pattern. And that very much falls in line to what the Climate Prediction Center is saying for our weather hazards outlook. Moderate risk of wetter conditions to the north of us, and also a slight risk of the higher snow hazard being more towards the California-Oregon border instead of right along that Sierra spine. Wind as well kind of shifts its way northward for that longer range forecast. Still got to get through the recent one coming in. We'll deal with this all the way through Wednesday morning. Again, Tuesday is our severe weather day. Wednesday, it's just more nuisance lingering showers. Thursday, Friday, even into Saturday, we're still dry. And then this last low in this cycle of kind of on the warmer side of storms moves through for our Sunday and Monday forecast. Once we get on the back edge of that on Monday, that's going to be one of the coldest days of our forecast in the next 10 days. Then we start to shift to those more colder storms, it looks like, through the beginning of March. Could be a miracle March with a lot of snowfall in our forecast. In the meantime, as we're wrapping up February, we are still looking at some on and off rain showers that will continue through our forecast, and snow showers through Wednesday, picking up again as we head towards Saturday. But you'll see the Tahoe Basin is still in the 40s there on Saturday. It's going to be a mix of rain and snow late Saturday into early Sunday. For the foothills, it's all about the rain as well as the coast. And then turning our attention to that 10-day forecast, we still have that active weather there. Oh, I should have taken down President's Day. That was today. But Tuesday is going to be thunderstorms. Wednesday, not so much. We'll start to clear things out. But we're right back to the active weather Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week.